our previous physical science labs, we dealt primarily with inorganic compounds. In our next two labs, we will take a brief look at organic compounds. As always, before beginning any experiment in the laboratory, be sure you are familiar with laboratory safety requirements. For a demonstration of basic lab safety rules, you can watch our video entitled Lab Safety. When we think of the word organic, we often think about something produced with natural ingredients without laboratory-made preservatives, pesticides, or growth hormones. To a chemist, an organic compound is composed of carbon atoms covalently bonded to other atoms, usually hydrogen, oxygen, or nitrogen. Millions of organic compounds exist, and many more are developed each year. Organically grown fruits and vegetables are made up of organic compounds. But so are plastic bottles, containers, cups, and dinnerware. Organic compounds also include fuels, such as natural gas and gasoline, medicines, including pain relievers, antibiotics, and sedatives, and foods, such as sugars, starches, fats, oils, and proteins. DNA and RNA, the complex molecules that form the genetic code for every living organism, are also organic compounds. One of the major families of organic compounds is hydrocarbons. Hydrocarbons are organic compounds made up of only two elements, hydrogen and carbon. The four major classes of hydrocarbons are alkanes, alkenes, alkynes, and arenes. An alkane is a hydrocarbon with only single covalent bonds between its atoms. Propane, which is a common alkane, is a colorless gas used as a fuel for grills, torches, laboratory burners, and hot air balloons. A molecule of propane has 3 carbon atoms joined with single covalent bonds. 8 hydrogen atoms are bonded to the carbon atoms. The second class of hydrocarbons are alkenes. An alkene is a hydrocarbon with 1 double covalent bond between 2 of its carbon atoms. The other bonds are single bonds. Propene, which is a typical alkene, is a colorless gas used in the production of plastic containers and laboratory equipment. A molecule of propene has 3 carbon atoms, like propane, but a molecule of propene has only 6 hydrogen atoms. A propene molecule has a double covalent bond between its first and second carbon atoms. All its other bonds are single covalent bonds. A third class of hydrocarbons is alkynes. An alkyne is a hydrocarbon with 1 triple covalent bond between 2 of its carbon atoms. Propyne is a colorless alkyne gas that is sometimes used for cutting and welding metal. A molecule of propyne has 3 carbon atoms and 4 hydrogen atoms, with a triple covalent bond between 2 of its carbon atoms. All other bonds are single covalent bonds. The hydrocarbons we have looked at so far have all been in the form of straight chain molecules. The carbon atoms in a straight chain molecule are arranged in a continuous chain without branching or forming rings. The members of the last major class of hydrocarbons form hexagonal rings of carbon atoms. These ring-shaped hydrocarbons are arenes. An arene is a hydrocarbon with at least 1 hexagonal ring of carbon atoms bonded together with hybrid bonding. The bonds between the carbon atoms in an arene are hybrid bonds, which are stronger than single bonds, but not quite as strong as double bonds. Hybrid bonding is often indicated with a circle inside the hexagonal ring of carbon atoms. This arene is called benzene. It has a chemical formula of C6H6. Hydrocarbons with only single covalent bonds between their carbon atoms are saturated hydrocarbons. Alkanes, such as hexane, are saturated hydrocarbons because they have only single bonds between their atoms. Hydrocarbons with double, triple, or hybrid bonds between their carbon atoms are unsaturated hydrocarbons. The compounds hexene, hexyne, and benzene are unsaturated hydrocarbons with 6 carbon atoms. They are unsaturated because of their double, triple, or hybrid bonds. A simple test can be performed in the lab to determine whether a hydrocarbon is saturated or unsaturated. For this demonstration, we will use 3 liquid hydrocarbons: cyclohexane, which is an alkane, cyclohexene, which is an alkene, and benzene, which is an arene. Cyclohexane is used in the production of nylon, a synthetic fabric used for many things, such as this school bag. Cyclohexene is used to manufacture organic substances, such as adhesives and waterproof floor coatings. Benzene, which is a natural product of petroleum refining, is used in the manufacture of certain plastics, synthetic fibers, lubricants, adhesives, and dyes. These liquid hydrocarbons are extremely volatile, which means they quickly evaporate at room temperature to form vapors. In addition to being volatile, these hydrocarbons are flammable, so even their vapors could easily catch fire. One additional warning: all 3 of these liquids are toxic and could cause health problems after prolonged exposure. Because of these potential hazards, we will perform this experiment under the fume hood. To test a hydrocarbon to see if it is saturated, we can use bromine water, which is the element bromine dissolved in water. Bromine water has a characteristic orange color. If bromine water is added to a saturated hydrocarbon, no reaction occurs. The mixture of the saturated hydrocarbon and bromine water turns orange and remains that color. If bromine water is added to an unsaturated hydrocarbon, the hydrocarbon will react with the bromine to form a colorless compound. For this experiment, we have test tubes containing bromine water, a test tube containing cyclohexane, a test tube containing cyclohexene, and a test tube containing benzene. Let's see what happens when we add bromine water to cyclohexane. We add bromine water to the test tube containing the cyclohexane and shake to mix the contents. Then, we place the test tube back in the rack and wait to see if any chemical reaction occurs. Next, we repeat these steps with the test tube containing cyclohexene. Finally, we repeat the steps with the test tube containing benzene. Now that the test tubes have remained undisturbed for several hours, let's examine the results of our experiment. The contents of the test tube containing cyclohexane and bromine water separated into 2 layers. The top layer is a mixture of bromine water with cyclohexane. The bottom layer is bromine water, which is denser than the mixture, so it settled to the bottom of the test tube. When we hold the test tube near the test tube of bromine water, we see that the color of the mixture at the top of the test tube is still orange, which indicates that no reaction occurred. Since no reaction occurred, we conclude that cyclohexane is a saturated hydrocarbon. Now, Let's look at the tube containing cyclohexene and bromine water. The contents of the test tube separated into two layers. The top layer is cyclohexene. The cyclohexene reacted with bromine water to form a colorless compound called dibromocyclohexane, which settled to the bottom of the test tube because it is denser than cyclohexene. When we hold the test tube near the test tube of bromine water, we see that both layers are colorless. Since a reaction occurred, we conclude that cyclohexene is an unsaturated hydrocarbon. Finally, we check the test tube containing benzene and bromine water. As with the other two hydrocarbons, the contents of the test tube containing benzene and bromine water separated into two layers. The top layer is a mixture of benzene and bromine water. Under bright lights, benzene reacted with bromine water to produce a cloudy, colorless compound named benzyl bromide, which settled to the bottom of the test tube. When we hold the test tube near the test tube of bromine water, we see that the bottom layer is colorless, but the top layer has a slight orange color. Benzene is mostly unsaturated, but it has some chemical properties of saturation, so a slight color remains. From this experiment, we confirm that alkanes, such as cyclohexane, are saturated hydrocarbons. We also confirm that alkenes and arenes, such as cyclohexene and benzene, are unsaturated hydrocarbons. Knowing whether an organic compound is saturated or unsaturated is important to our health, as we will see in the next lab. At this time, proceed with the corresponding activities.